goes back
One
home.
of the most fascinating stories in your book, just to go on another sidetrack here, then, is who Tommy is. Tommy is a nephew
Uh,
of the
well,
uncle.
that's what I didn't know.
Can you explain to the viewers who Uncle is?
Well,
And the DEA story? Oh, yeah.
yeah, I couldn't understand why when I went back to Thailand later on. I could understand why how the Australian police would have been funded for their undercover things because they liked it. It was interesting. Um, then, but what were the DEA involved in it? And what I didn't know about young Tommy was that his uncle was one of the big four, perhaps five, if you count the White Horse brand. Um, well, it's not so much that they had laboratories; they were the big heroin smugglers of northern Thailand. They don't use laboratories, as you probably know. The opium's grown in a village. Laboratory is kind of a kitchen outfit that does it independently. A middleman will take the opium to the laboratory, pay them to process it. But the protection of all this is done by the bigger people.
Are they like warlords then?
Yes, they say you can conduct your business through here. That's fine with me. They could arrange supply, but they don't need to because they're semi-political. I mean, Kun Sa was part of the Shan state in northern Burma, wasn't he? Always after for independence. And they were funny. Whenever one of them had a birthday, they'd send elaborate gifts for each other. Now, Tommy's uncle was one of the big ones there. But why should he be particularly hated by the DEA? Well, for good reason. What I didn't know until I was in enough trouble to realize it, that he was hated, and therefore all of anybody connected with him, because a DEA agent stationed in Chiang Mai, though told to sit in a desk and collect your money and do nothing, file some reports, went out into the field, scared a couple of farmers up with their crops, made himself a general nuisance, was warned off. I mean, if you see the village headman one week and be seen talking to him and you're a D agent, when you go back the next month and find that the head of the village headman is sitting on a post somewhere, you might blame yourself, but not this guy. He kept at it. So to put the frighteners on him, Uncle arranged that the wife would be grabbed from the street, driven around town, and then released.
The DEA agent's wife is going to get grabbed.
Yeah. Actually, I mentioned in the new book details in his name for those that are interested in it. But the whole thing went wrong. She and the maid, this is the wife of the DEA agent, and the maid are taking the kids to school. They drop them off. Somebody comes in, grabs them. They're put in a van, driven away at speed. No, that part didn't happen because the engine broke down in the van that they were in. They end up surrounded by police, television crews there everywhere. The gunman's one's been shot dead by a local policeman and who shot back. The gunman, to keep himself alive, has taken his revolver, tied copper wire around the trigger of it, and is holding the hammer back with his thumb at the head of the wife, knowing that, well, if you kill me, won't be the only one. So Uncle hears about this, arranges two things in a hurry. One, to do a swap out. Some big kind of Buddhist figure, Buddhist priests, well, they're not really priests, but anyway, was going to swap places with the wife so that at least get her out of it. Because Uncle's not stupid. He knows that you can't go this far with things. Being scared's one thing, so that you've got the wife in your ear when you get back from work saying, I just got kidnapped today, you asshole. We're getting out. Before anything can be done, the Americans have got onto the biggest Thai connections they've got. The army's surrounding the place, and they're saying, we want him alive. We want to know who's behind this. But it's a hot day. The sweat's dribbling down his thumb as he's trying to keep this hammer back. It was a 38, I think, but this is closer to her head. Had to be effective, I suppose. And before the priest arrives, before the deal's done, he turns, it slips, gun goes off, she's dead. Alive, scream the Americans from down the line. But a more powerful voice, the uncle, calls to the head of the SWAT team, saying the opposite, dead. And he's decapitated by a high-power rifle. That is the gunman in the van. Sorry, no witnesses, nobody to question. But that's never always the end of these things, and the Americans convinced themselves it was Uncle behind it. So several years later, Uncle's driver says it's a flat tire. He'll change it. Well, look at that, says the driver. I'll have a look at that, says Uncle. Steps out of the car on the motorway. Peering down at the tire, huge truck barrels over and splatters the uncle. He's out of it. Fortunately for all the workers of the group, the number 2 steps straight in, Chinese tie. A lot of the businessmen in Thailand are Chinese, but they force them to take Thai names, so you've got to be observant to know. And justice is done? Well, no. There's something biblical about the DEA. All he and his progeny and those who know him. So everyone connected with the Uncle Tommy all cursed. And it was just enough to get Rubbish With Me funded, even though whenever anybody ever asked, well, what's at stake here? A ton? 10 kilos maybe. That's talking it out.
That's up there with the story of Kiki Camarera and the Mexican cartels. Bloody hell.
Well, those things do happen. There was Cocaine Katie, the Danish girl who got bigged up into that sort of situation. So it wasn't by chance that I kept meeting this DEA guy right through. Even in Pakistan, he turned up there.
So you're getting a nemesis now in the DEA as well as your nemesis in the Australian task force.
Yeah, the only people up until much later that didn't care were the British police. In fact, one of them more or less saved me from probable death in Pakistan by saying, well, you can't really torture our citizens because there's they don't like it. They just personally don't like it. It's very hard to put up with. One of the worst things about the Supermax, for example, there was a little...
The Supermax in Australia
now?
Okay.
But just as a prison, was listening to somebody else get it